Let's go out to the Dean and Listening Hotline, talk to Kennedi Landry of MLB.com, covering all things Texas Rangers. I believe already all done with everything as far as spring training goes. Being in Surprise, you're now back at your residence. Kennedi, how was all of spring training? How are you gearing up for the opening day on Thursday?
Yeah, it was a nice long time out in Surprise. I am definitely happy to be back on Texas soil, I can tell you that. But it was long, it was fun. It was, spring training's Groundhog Day. It's the same thing every day. So definitely happy to be back in Texas, ready to get opening day and the 2025 season up and running. But you know how it is.
Before I get into specific questions about opening day, what personality or just person in general jumped out to you in spring training that was maybe a new addition to the team?
Not a specific new addition to the team, I guess, but minor leaguer Mark Church. He's recently, Bruce Bochy told us today that he made the opening day roster. He pitched 1 inning of relief last year at the end of the season. He's such a fun guy to talk to. He's a guy that wasn't even pitching until his senior year of high school because he made a bet with a friend that he couldn't touch 80 on the radar gun off the mound, and he touched 90 instead, and he's been a pitcher ever since. So it's been really fun to watch him these last few years for the minors with the Rangers, and for him to be on the opening day roster. I think I'm really excited for fans to be able to get to know this guy. So it'll be a lot of fun for that.
All the chatter has been about Evan Carter not making the opening day lineup. Just concern level on him not making opening day.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of concern there. Obviously, we saw what he did in 2023 when he came up first, and then in the postseason, obviously, he was one of many World Series heroes the Rangers had, and he just hasn't looked right pretty much since then. Obviously, he had the lingering back issue for so much of last year, only played about 45 games, and when he was playing, he didn't look good. And then coming into spring training, he had off-season back surgery. He said he feels healthy. He looks, for all intents and purposes, healthy, but just hasn't really been able to make much of anything happen at the plate. I think he finished spring training with a .419 OPS, batting average under 200. He just hasn't looked as good as we know he has been at this level of the game. So I think there is a little bit of concern, but I think him going down to Round Rock, playing every day, facing pitchers on both the right and left-handed side, just to get him back into the groove of his timing, his rhythm, getting his body in sync with his mind, all of these things I think can really help if he goes down to Round Rock in a month or so. I think he'll be back helping the big league club sooner rather than later, but he just needs, I think he called it a stress-free environment, going down to AAA and just, batting leadoff every day, getting all the reps, and getting back to the player that he knows he can be.
Kennedi Landry joining us, talking all things Texas Rangers. We're less than 48 hours away from this thing, going real. Kumar Rocker, a surprise, I think, to some folks, considering that, yes, look, this is not the best spring training, especially considering the way he ended last season. Jack Leiter obviously pitched lights out. Did this have more to do with the fact that you don't have Gray and you don't have Cody Bradford and Corbin just wasn't ready yet, and you feel confident enough in Kumar Rocker to go ahead and put him in that 5th spot?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all of the things. Obviously, you don't want to lose a veteran like John Gray and a real up-and-coming starter like Cody Bradford a week before opening day. But that's not to say that Rocker didn't put himself in a good position to make his opening day roster regardless. Obviously, the numbers don't look great when you look at what his ERA ended up being through Cactus League play and all of those things. I think it was 13 going into today's shutout outing against the Royals in the final exhibition of the spring. But I think if there's one thing that Bruce Bochy has said every time Rocker has pitched is that he has gotten better each and every time. And speaking of getting your mind and your body kind of synced together, that's something that Rocker really emphasized. That he said he came into camp and he just felt like his mechanics were a little out of whack. He couldn't get everything to his upper half, his lower half, his brain. All of it wasn't really syncing together. And you saw each time out throughout the spring, even though the results didn't always show it, that he was getting better. He was getting better control of those off-speed pitches. He was commanding the fastball much better, both the sinker and the four-seamer. And he today was kind of a culmination of all of that. Obviously, 4 shutout innings, 8 strikeouts. He's still got to rein in some of those walks, but I guess if you're striking out everybody, nobody's coming home. So again, I think it's a combination of the two things. Rocker did put himself in a good position, obviously ending last year and then, getting things together towards the end of spring to at least be a consideration regardless of the injuries.
Look, I've been a big believer in this for a long time, and again, maybe I'm just reaching here, but how much do you, and I know you've talked to Kumar, how much of the fact that, growing up with a dad who played professional sports, coached professional sports, factors into a guy like a Kumar Rocker who, as you alluded to, first two starts did not look good. Like you were talking about, okay, this guy's going to AAA. And
Double A.
Yeah, right? He did not look good. And then, like you said, totally turns it around and doesn't lose any momentum. And the fact is that in baseball, maybe outside of golf, probably the most mental sport of the professional sports. How much do you factor in, as he talked about the fact that, growing up with that has certainly helped in his professional baseball career?
Yeah, obviously his dad, Tracy Rocker, College Football Hall of Famer at Auburn. And I think you can say that for both of the Vandy boys, Jack and Kumar,
and Leiter, right?
They both grew up with these, professional athlete fathers who were, very, very good at their respective sports. And I think it's hard to deny that does have an effect on those two guys with the ups and the downs and obviously Leiter specifically has had a roller coaster of a professional career since the Rangers drafted him, and then Rocker obviously with the injuries and then the rough spring. I think they just, they have that kind of good head on their shoulders to be able, not to be cliche, but not get too high, not get too low, stay the course and, wait for the results to really follow what the processes are for both of them. And I think you saw that a lot with Rocker. He never, even today, he made the opening day roster. He kind of had the same monotone, effect about him. He was like, yeah, this is what it is. I expect a lot of myself, and this is what you want. You want to make the opening day roster, but he didn't seem overly emotional or anything. And I think that goes both ways for him, that he doesn't get overly emotional in the good or the bad. And that's obviously worked for him throughout his career. He's had a lot of ups and downs as well, more on the injury side than the performance side. But we saw it this spring as he kind of gathered himself, got together. These last few starts of Cactus League play have looked really good for him. And that's kind of the picture that the Rangers know they have and want to see entering this season.
Kennedy Landry, MLB.com. Kennedy, what do you make of the bullpen? I think we saw a mock version of what the 7, 8, 9 setup guys would look like. Are you impressed by that? And then obviously with Mark Church and Garabito getting those last two spots, what role do you think they'll play in the bullpen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, firstly on, Garabito and Church, Garabito is going to be the long guy out of the pen. You look at this rotation right now, you have three guys coming off of Tommy John surgery and, DeGrom, Tyler Mahle, and Rocker. So you need some length out of the bullpen regardless of who that may be starting that game. So that's, number one. I think Church is going to be a guy that they're going to, kind of fiddle with a bit. He can go 1+ innings as he did the other day. He can put out some fires. He's still a young pitcher. He's still going to be learning. So he's not going to get, those higher leverage situations. And, these other 6 relievers that the Rangers have are all new or kind of new when you look at Luke Jackson and Chris Martin returning after years away from the organization. But, like you said, I asked Bruce Bochy if the bullpen last night is going to be what we see on opening day in a save situation, which was Robert Garcia pitched the 7th, Chris Martin pitched the 8th, and Luke Jackson pitched the 9th. He did not confirm nor deny that before saying that obviously that's kind of the way they would lean. Obviously taking in matchups into account, what the other team's lineups look like in terms of handedness and splits and all of those things. But I would expect, those 3 guys, and Garcia, Martin, and Jackson, to be your quote-unquote higher leverage guys going into the season.
Kennedy, we've been pretty positive, and we try to stay positive on this show, but we also got to be real. What is a concern you still have going on with the team, other than just, basic health, DeGrom staying healthy? What are some concerns you have for this Rangers team as opening days on Thursday?
I've been really high on Rocker and Leiter, throughout their minor league careers, throughout the ups and downs that we've talked about. But when you have 2 rookies in this rotation and, obviously Patrick Corbin on the way, who is thrown a lot of innings and maybe not as good as you would like for a guy who's throwing 200 innings and making 30 starts and all of those things. And I think, you look at the rotation. I know you said other than health, but that's really the biggest thing for me when you look at the rotation is you're relying on 2 rookies to, contribute a lot of innings. And especially when you look at already down 2 starters, that's going to be a major question mark, I guess you would say, when you look at how these things are going. So I think those two guys, Rocker and Leiter, are going to be really crucial for the success of this team going forward. I don't think I'm breaking any news there. Everybody can see, pitching wins championships. The president of baseball operations was a major league pitcher. That's a huge emphasis for this organization and has been since Chris Young took over. But that's going to be really important for me when I look at this team.
I want to get ahead of myself. Opening day hasn't even happened, so you're more than welcome to skip this question. But John Gray and Cody Bradford obviously being sidelined right now with the injuries. When they are to come back, and you would assume, obviously, whatever two pitchers aren't doing the best will get moved around. Do you think this lineup will still be able to suffice with 7 guys? Could you see Rocker and Leiter maybe being long relievers, only starters going back to AAA? What do you think the Rangers' vision kind of is when they have a fully healthy starting rotation of everybody being healthy?
Yeah, like you said, you don't want to put the cart before the horse there in general. But I think the Rangers and Chris Young and Bruce Bochy are always going to go with, the hot hand, the best 5 guys in the rotation, and the best 13 total pitchers on the pitching staff. So if some of these guys, if they want Cody Bradford to come back kind of earlier and he can go to the bullpen and be a long reliever, they might not need him to come back and be a starter immediately. Obviously, building him back up to be a starter, restarting that entire clock from where he was in spring training, that's going to delay his return even longer. So I wouldn't even be shocked if Cody Bradford came back and was the long guy in the bullpen instead of sending Rocker or Leiter out there. I think there's a lot of different ways these puzzle pieces can fall, mixing and matching. I always joke it's everything that Bruce Bochy does. It's Bruce Bochy double magic. That's what he does. He always figures out a way to make these things work. So looking at how the pitching staff is going to play out in a month, 2 months, 3 months, so many things can happen between now and then. So who's even to say, knock on wood, that everybody is even healthy by the time those guys come back and things like that. So I don't want to fully put the cart before the horse there, but that's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Kennedy, I'll go ahead and put a cart before the horse. Here's my question for you. They lose hitting coach Tim Hires, right? He goes to the Atlanta Braves last year. And so now you've got 2 hitting coaches, right? You got Seth Conner and you got Justin Veely, who you brought in. And, of course, you're coming off a year where it seems like, they couldn't hit themselves out of wet paper sack last year. Obviously, this year it's got to be a much different story if this team's going to do what we think it's going to do in 2025. What is there? What was kind of the discussion, or what was kind of the feeling around the new hitting coach this year? And is there a new approach? Kind of what's kind of that feeling as far as the offensive side of the plate after last year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you can't forget Donnie Ecker, the offensive coordinator, who's really a part of this, the offensive organization of this team as much as anybody. He worked with Justin Veely in San Francisco, obviously Seth Conner, the assistant hitting coach. And those two guys really work well together, hand in hand, in terms of the approach for the guys at the plate, everything that goes into hitting. When you look at this offense, I think last year, obviously, the offense was bad for a number of reasons, whether that was, health, Josh Young, Evan Carter, who we already talked about, or even just a bit of regression, whether that was Adolis Garcia, Marcus Semien, so many different guys. This offense this year, they added some pop, a little bit of slug with swapped out Jake Berger with Nathaniel Lowe, obviously sending Nathaniel Lowe to the Nationals, and then Jock Peterson, obviously in the DH spot. The Rangers were practically a black hole at the DH spot last year, and even in 2023, anytime Mitch Garver wasn't in the lineup, it wasn't a very productive spot. So just getting Jock Peterson in that DH spot, even if they're platooning him a bit, only having him face right-handers, that's already a huge boost to this offense. So I think the improvements on offense will come from a number of different places. Like I said, the positive regression from Marcus and Adolis, and the health of Josh Young and Corey Seager, and everybody just kind of clicking and getting back in sync. I think I've used the word in sync a million times in the time I've been on this call with you guys, but that's going to go. That's going to.
As long as you don't start singing it, we're good.
I will not be singing on the radio, I promise you. But it will go a long way for this team, and I think the coaching staff and Bruce Bochy is very confident in the hitting coaches and Donnie Eckert and how these guys are going through the processes every day.
So let's touch on that elephant in the room, Mr. Jacob deGrom. Obviously, he's going to start on Sunday. Bochy's talked about, look, it would be great if you had 6 bodies that you could maybe, spread him out. He's also talked about having him as far as, if you got to put him on a 10-day IL stint just to kind of get his, arm right, or just to kind of get him back in the flow of things, or kind of, make sure that he's where he needs to be. Overall, what is the kind of the, front office, Bochy, everybody, what's kind of the feeling about DeGrom in 2025?
I think maybe cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
He's looked really good this spring. Obviously, they slow played him, put him at the back of the rotation, kind of setting up how those off days, if you look at the calendar, setting DeGrom up at the back of the rotation kind of sets up a semi-6-man rotation with the number of off days they have. So everybody gets an extra day, and especially DeGrom, by setting him up in the back of the rotation. So, he's looked good. He said he feels really good, healthy. His arm feels, the best that it's had since before the Tommy John. I think everybody knows the kind of pitcher that Jacob DeGrom is or has been when he's healthy. He also just hasn't thrown more than 150 innings since 2019. And that's even including some time missed during the COVID season. So, he said he wants to make 30 starts. He wants to pitch 200 innings. That's not probable, obviously, in your first year coming back from Tommy John. But even getting, 20 starts out of Jacob DeGrom this year, I think would be a win in the Rangers' eyes. Getting any way that Jacob DeGrom can be on the mound and not on the injured list is a win. So I think everybody seems, like I said, cautiously optimistic about the approach to DeGrom, how everybody is not handling him with bubble wrap, but, making sure they're handling this in the best way to keep him healthy across the season and hopefully into October.
Get you out of here with this, Kennedy. You broke the news that Jock Peterson's going to be using LeAngelo Ball's Tweaker song, and that went viral over there. Any other walkout songs you want to let us know, and your expectations for opening day on Thursday?
My favorite was Jake Berger had a little Stevie Nicks there, which was really fun. Jonah Heim changing his walk-up song for the first time since being on the Rangers. It used to be a song called Home Sweet, which I've only ever heard in the ballpark when Jonah Heim comes up to the plate. And now it's On the Way, I believe, by Khalid, I think, sings it. So I do have a spreadsheet with all of the walk-up songs because I'm a big music person. That's very fun for me. It gives you a little insight to a lot of the guys' the guys' personalities. One of my favorites that I'm really upset we don't get to hear now since Evan Carter's going down the Round Rock, but he did change his walk-up song to Mr. Carter by Lil Wayne, which I think is phenomenal.
Lil Wayne,
solid choice
nod right there. Kennedy, where can the people at home find you when they want to stay up to date on all things Texas Rangers?
At Ken Landry on Twitter, at Ken Landry MLB on Instagram. That's where I'm at.
There you go. The best of the best only. If you want to stay up on all things Texas Rangers and see what Miss Kennedi Landry's got cooking, make sure you give her a follow. Kennedy, thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with us, and hopefully we'll be back soon.
Awesome. Thank y'all. Have a good one.